So shall we begin?
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
It's 4:01. Got 20 plus people. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope you're all well.
Bye.
Hello. So we're going to start today, as usual, with some soothing rhythm breathing. So without further ado, let's get to it. So feet on the ground. Feel the ground that your feet are resting on. Feel your body in the seat. The idea that we're suspended from the top of our head by a strong but invisible thread. So hanging from that. Perhaps the idea of a slight smile on your face, as if you've just seen somebody you're happy to see. You come home and your pet is greeting you, half smile. And then if you're okay with closing your eyes, close your eyes. Apologies if you can hear beeping, there's workmen outside my house. So just allow your attention to settle. Allow your attention to settle on your breath, on the sensation of the air moving in and out of your body. Just focusing on your breathing will probably change it. It's okay. We're looking to just slow our breath, perhaps make it a little more deep than usual. You can breathe in through your nose and out through your nose if you can. If you can't manage that, you need to breathe through your mouth, that's okay. Feeling your feet on the ground, your body in the chair. And as you breathe out, you can say to yourself, mind slowing down. Body slowing down. And then just noticing what we can feel. Noticing our tricky brain, how it tends to jump about. So if we notice we're distracted from our breath, we can, if we wish, gently encourage our attention to come back and settle again on the sensation of the air moving in and out of our body. So we notice and we return. We notice the distraction and return to our breath. And then you can take a nice deep breath in. And you can breathe out and open your eyes.
Okay, thanks, Lee.
Was it noisy
Well
at this end?
Not too bad. Well done for keeping the focus. Yeah, it was probably much more distracting for you than it was for anybody else.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think
hi everyone. Oh,
no, go on,
sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say that, that for me, that's what this is about, because often I work with people who say they're distracted. I can't do this. I'm always distracted. There'll always be a distraction. If you're in a cave at the top of a mountain, you'd hear the wind. If there was no wind, you'd hear the blood going through your blood vessels. So there's always something that our tricky brain can focus on. Sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it isn't. For me, the workmen outside the window were very obvious, but there you go.
Good point. So I just want to recap, just like we normally do, what we covered last week, and then introduce what we're going to cover this week. So to do that, I need to share my slides with you. Okay, so we're on session 4 now. So session 3, we talked about the first psychology of compassion. So these compassionate attributes that we have, we might need to develop particular ones. So having that general care for well-being, that kind of motivation, that sensitivity to distress, to actually notice suffering, to have sympathy, so to be moved by that suffering, and empathy, that kind of perspective taking of what other people or ourselves might be feeling. That non-judgment that's so important, and particularly when we're doing things like mindfulness, having the non-judgment towards ourselves and the processes going on in our minds, really important, and also being able to tolerate distress. So those were the first psychology of compassion. And then we talked about some common barriers to compassion. So things like perhaps a fear that it's weak, or that we might be letting ourselves or other people off the hook. So it can be really helpful to understand what our barriers are, so that we can sort of challenge those, or at least name them, and then they can have less influence. And I think we talked about people potentially being quite fearful of compassion if perhaps we haven't had compassion experiences in our life, or perhaps that's been linked in our early lives, those attachments of when we have kind of received compassion, it's been followed by less helpful experiences, sort of fearful experiences or abuse. So it's really important to understand what our barriers might be, or those of the people that we're working with if we're doing therapy. And then we did an exercise, understanding our self-critic. So we kind of imagined our self-critic and thought about what the different aspects of it were, what kind of things it would say, what it would look like, and then compared that with a sort of more compassionate self, to really try and understand what is the self-critic trying to actually do, and can it still be achieved by the compassionate self. And then we did an exercise just developing compassion towards ourselves. We talked about the different flows of compassion. So this week we're going to talk more about the second psychology of compassion, and that's specifically looking at compassionate skills. So Lee's going to give a bit of a rundown of those skills, and it's almost like we can do a bit in our own minds, a kind of skills audit really of what things that we might need to develop a bit more of. And then we're specifically going to focus on the skill of imagery, and do quite a few sort of experiential exercises to help develop that. So that's the plan. So do you want me to move on to the next slide, Lee? You're on mute.
Thank you. Unless anybody's got any questions, we can move on. Has anybody got any questions? Can we see the questions with the slides up?
No.
Just to give people a chance. There you go. Yeah. So just a minute or so, just in case anybody's got any questions that they wanted to ask. in the chat function, just in case we haven't been clear enough. Seems okay. Okay, well, that's ongoing, yeah.
Okay, I shall share my screen with you again then. 1 sec. Okay, and I'll move on to the next slide. If it will let me. I don't know what's wrong with it. There we go.
There you go. So yeah, so we're looking at the second psychology. As Esther just went through, we looked at the first one last week, and now we're looking at a few skills that we've listed there. So it's about the skills and the wisdom to do something about the suffering that we're sensitive to. So we need courage and understanding for wisdom. So, for instance, I about 20 years ago, I became aware that our prisons are full of people who have been traumatized and who are struggling. So I was sensitive to that. I became aware of it, but then I wanted to do something about it. So what I did was I trained to become a therapist. So what about you guys there? Do you feel you have the skills and the wisdom to alleviate suffering? And if so, what helps you to do that? And what makes it harder to do? Just get your thinking, really. So let's look at what we've got listed here. So compassionate attention is the first one. So we've looked over the weeks at how easily we can get caught up in the things that trigger our threat system. And that's our tricky brain. Just like when I was sat there and we were doing the soothing rhythm breathing and the workmen were outside and there was a real racket going on here. Part of my brain was going, oh my God, what are they going to think of me? I can't even do this in, there's no peace and quiet. I can't focus on it. That's my tricky brain. We get caught up in these patterns very, very easily. So what can we do about our attention? So at that point, what did I do? Well, I noticed my distraction and I allowed my attention, I encouraged it, I suppose, to settle back on my breathing, on the sensation of the air moving in and out of my body. So that's about teaching us that we can learn the ability to focus on helpful things, not unhelpful things, because me sat there going, oh my God, this is a disaster. All they can hear is the beeping of the workman's truck reversing, blah, blah, blah. It's not really very helpful. So the second one, imagery. So imagery. So that's about how imagery in the new brain can impact on the old brain. We spoke about the zebra and the lion, I think in week 1. And what imagery about, and we're going to focus on this today, that what we imagine can produce a very similar physiological response to the real thing. So for instance, if I do this in prison a lot because it's very relevant to the guys there, I'll ask them what their favorite food is, because odds on they can't get hold of it. What is your very favorite meal? And if you sit and imagine, I don't know whether you can do that now, you can sit and imagine the very favorite meal, the meal you'd have for your birthday or the last meal you could ever have or whatever. And imagine that plate of food in front of you and smell that plate of food. Look at the textures. So as I do that, my mouth begins to water. So my ability to make an image has a direct physiological response, which is my mouth getting ready to produce saliva to digest this food that I'm just imagining. So that's the second one. So then the third one, reasoning and thinking. So we've acknowledged that we can get caught up in these threat-based thinking loops, and that's, you know, words like ruminating, catastrophizing. Our threat-based system tries to warn us that a negativity bias, that's terrible, it's the worst it could possibly be, we've got to protect ourselves from that. We can get caught up in that. So can we think, what might be a helpful way to think about this? Can we notice that that's what we're doing, that we're being caught up in this loop by our threat-based system? And can we go, hang on a minute, what might be a helpful way to think about this? Or perhaps, what might we say to a friend or a loved one in this situation? If we were talking to somebody, a friend who is suffering, what might we say to them? And then the fourth one here is behavior. So we are what we do. That's sort of the idea of behavioral activation, compassionate behavior. Can we work out what we need or what others need and then do it? Is that possible? So it's not just being nice. It might mean that we have to speak out. We might have to say no. We might have to stand up. We might have to speak truth to power. It might be anything. It's not just about being kind. It's sometimes to do with asserting and behaving in a compassionate manner. It might be about practicing mindfulness or soothing rhythm breathing. And then we have sensory focusing, fifth one. So that's about using our bodies to calm our minds. Using all of our senses can help us tolerate and regulate our distress and feel more grounded. So if you think of the soothing rhythm breathing, or we did a body scan earlier in the sessions, we move into our body. We use our body as a safe place to be. And our posture can help us feel strong and wise. And then last one here, feelings. We can practice developing positive emotions. And we do that lots of different ways. We do that when we do the loving kindness meditation. May I be well, may I be happy, etc. Or the soothing rhythm breathing again. And this can help us tolerate stress. So remember that a lot of the soothing rhythm breathing, a lot of the exercises we're doing, they're not just to relax. They're not just to feel nice and relaxed. They're actually to soothe us enough that we can turn to face the difficult things. So remember compassion as a motivation. So, I mean, at the bottom, is it possible this week you could maybe think about which of these areas, maybe not all at the same time, one at a time, small steps, which of these areas you might like to focus on? Could you pick one each week, for instance? Keep a diary and decide to commit to one of these skills.
And I was just going to add,
have I missed anything? Yeah, go on.
No, you haven't missed anything at all. I was just going to add, I guess the therapists among us might be thinking about the relevance of kind of cognitive behavior therapy and how that links with reasoning and thinking. And it really does, doesn't it? Because CBT is all about kind of looking at your thoughts and challenging those. But I think CFT kind of adds to that, in that it's not just thinking about what the alternative thought might be, but really paying attention to the tone in which we say these things to ourselves, and bringing in perhaps some of the imagery and the sensory and the feeling focus of that as well, rather than just the thoughts. But the thoughts is kind of one element of that. Just wanted to make that point. Yeah,
good point. Thanks, Esther.
So, as I said, one of the main thing we're going to focus on today is developing this skill of imagery. So we're going to try out quite a few different imagery exercises, and I think Lee kind of started talking about imagery there, but it's about using all of our senses. So we might have kind of visual imagery. So if I asked you to imagine a tree, that would be visual imagery. Or we might have auditory imagery. So if I imagined maybe the sound of the waves, or the sound of birds flying in the sky. Or we might have more kind of tactile imagery as well. So can you think about walking along with sand between your toes and how that feels, or feeling of the sun on your face? Or it might be the other kind of senses of taste. So like the exercise Lee did, imagining what our favourite meal would taste like and really paying attention to that. Or you might have kind of smell imageries as well, olfactory imagery. So if I asked you to imagine the smell of fresh cut grass, maybe that would be nice, or your kind of favourite perfume. Or imagine also if I asked you to imagine the smell of dog poo and think about how that affects your body. So we can use each of these different senses. It's not just about visual imagery, I suppose. And people can get quite caught up on thinking, well, I can't really do imagery, or I can't get a clear picture in my mind, and that's totally normal. These pictures we can have expectations that we need something to be a really clear picture that's going to be stable and stay in our minds, but it doesn't really work like that. We might just get a gist of something. But if I asked you to imagine what a bicycle looks like, you probably could explain it, even though you wouldn't have a really, really clear picture in your mind. So I suppose it's just about the expectations we have on ourselves as we're going through this imagery. So I'm just going to share my slides with you again. Okay. And hopefully move on to the next slide, if it will let me. There we go. So this is just summing up what Lee started to talk about, that we essentially can have these experiences in the world where particular stimuluses are there, maybe kind of a meal or somebody that we find attractive, and then that starts to create kind of images in our mind, and then that can have bodily reactions. So we imagine them, we see a meal and we have the stomach acid and saliva and start wanting to eat it, but then even when the meal's not there, we can create an image of a meal and still have the same reaction. Just like if we might see somebody that we find attractive and have the kind of, without going into too much detail, the kind of arousal in the body, but that person doesn't always have to be there. There's kind of images that people can create in their minds, that fantasy. Just the same if you imagine that you had a boss that was really bullying and threatening, and whilst you're at work you can feel quite fearful and down and find it really hard to be around them. But you could also recreate that in your mind, kind of our tricky new brain recreate and ruminate on what's been happening. But there also might be an element of self-criticism where we bully and threaten ourselves, which we sort of talked about last week. So these are all really powerful qualities of the new brain, and we can use this all to our advantage. And what compassion focused therapy is trying to do is to be able to create in our minds this kind, warm, calming stimulus that can make us feel safe and soothed and have that reaction in our bodies. And the key points which I think that you'll have hopefully picked up is that imagery can stimulate the same parts of our brain as real events. We know that it's not exactly the same, but our brains actually don't distinguish internal and external signals that well. They don't, so we can still have the same reactions in our body, and that we can deliberately practice generating helpful images in order to build our soothing and affiliative systems, which is what we're kind of trying to do. So we're going to do a little exercise now. I'll just stop sharing. Just focusing on a soothing kind of colour. So I don't know whether people have done this before, but we're going to start just as all CFT imagery exercises start. So we're just going to engage our soothing rhythm breathing. So remembering that body posture that can have the biofeedback on and impact how we feel. So getting into a kind of comfortable upright position, both feet flat on the floor in front of you, imagining that string holding your head up to the ceiling, and just start to focus on your breath. Let your attention settle there. And just getting into a comfortable breathing rhythm that's right for you. And paying attention to that facial expression, perhaps imagining that you're seeing a loved one or pets, greeting them, they're pleased to see you, you're pleased to see them. And just letting your face settle into that half smile. And on your out breath, starting to say those words in your mind. Mind slowing down. And again on your out breath, body slowing down. So perhaps sinking back a little bit more into your chair, feeling a little bit heavier, and hopefully having a sense of slowing down. And then just try and bring to mind a colour wheel. So a wheel with all of the colours of the rainbow on it. And just sort of spinning that wheel round, allow your attention to settle on a colour that you find soothing, calming, makes you feel good. Don't worry if you can't get a colour clear in your mind, that's okay. Perhaps you have a few, perhaps it's just part of the colour wheel. And just see what comes to mind. And then just try and imagine that colour in front of you. Maybe you could imagine it in the form of a light, or perhaps it's a mist. Maybe it's a kind of ball of colour. And perhaps imagining that the light or mist or ball starts to kind of envelope you, spinning around you, perhaps entering your body through your heart. And noticing how that makes you feel in your body. Be trying to imagine that this colour wants to support you, wants to give you strength and help you feel soothed and calm. Perhaps you imagine the colour going into every part of your body, slowly moving across your body, moving into your fingers, down your arms, moving down your legs and into your feet. And imagine it coming up into your mind, into your brain, helping you feel more soothed. And then perhaps imagine the colour radiating out of you, perhaps a beam of coloured light coming from your heart, And really just focus on the feelings that this creates in your body. This feeling of being soothed and calm. And then when you're ready, just letting that colour fade, but perhaps taking part of it with you into the rest of your day. So slowly ending the exercise in your own time, opening your eyes if you've had them shut, and bringing your attention back to the room. So I don't know if anybody has any comments on that exercise, anything they noticed, whether it was easy or more difficult than ones you normally do. I know sometimes if people feel quite threatened by thinking of other people and compassion in the context of relationships, maybe had more tricky experiences in life, the compassionate colour one can be a good place to start. It can feel less threatening. So it's easy to get a sense of colour. Anna said, and very relaxing. Sarah said, super relaxing and very relaxing. Excellent. Okay. Find it hard to keep your head up. Right. And I wonder if that's through feeling kind of tired or just kind of balance. But I guess it's interesting, isn't it? What can kind of take our attention when we're doing this imagery, particularly if it's something that we're not used to doing. Yeah, so the person saying they're feeling tired, it's to do with that. Yeah. And I think Lee mentioned it, I know this came up in our first session, that some people felt really tired after doing the imagery, and I guess sometimes it can bring that about for us, can't it? Particularly if we don't slow down during our day and things, it can be almost our body's like, right, well, it's time to sleep when we slow down then. It's an important thing to notice. Very relaxing and soothing, but I struggle to get a colour. Maybe I'm tired and ready for a half-term break. Yes. Yeah, it can be a real challenge. I know there's different sort of difficulties people struggle with getting colours and things, and maybe one of the challenges is to pay attention to your environment as you go about your day, and kind of look for colours and try and think more about this, what you do find soothing, and kind of try and pick one with that. But also remembering the cycle of mindfulness as well, that it's totally normal for us to get distracted and focus on something else, and it's about not being judgmental of that and just accepting it and bringing it back to focus on the colour. Well, thanks for your comments, everybody. Are you wanting to take over now, Lee, to do the next imagery exercise? You are on mute.
Thank you. Yes, should we do that? I'm really hoping that the workmen aren't going to disturb us too much, so please, there's my threat system poised. So we're going to try some safe place imagery now. And that's in order to help us connect with that soothing affiliative system and all the related feelings of safeness, calmness, and contentment. So we'll start. We'll start like we start all these exercises, really. And this week is particularly exercise heavy. We've chosen it to be that way, so we do a lot of experiential stuff this week and slightly less theory. So if we can settle into a relaxed position, feet on the ground, head suspended, etc. Just allow ourselves to focus on our breathing. Close our eyes. if we feel able. If not, just soften our gaze. Allow your awareness to settle on sensation of the air moving in and out of your body. And then I'd invite you to imagine a place where we're looking for an image of a safe place. And this can be anywhere. It can be somewhere you've been, somewhere you've seen on television or in a film or in a dream or fantasy. So we're in our strong, grounded, soothing rhythm breathing posture. So then try and bring to mind an image of a place where you feel safe, soothed and calmed. Don't worry if nowhere comes to mind immediately, or if several images do, or again if the image isn't really clear. Just stay with your intention to create this safe place. If it does come to mind, if somewhere comes to mind, just spend a few minutes, just stay with it, just spend a few moments paying attention to what you can see. What can you see there? Are there any sounds? Maybe birds. It's a beach, sea, rustling of leaves. Are there any smells? Can you smell anything? Is there a wood fire, wood smoke somewhere? Any physical sensations? Can you feel the sun on your skin, the wind? Is there anyone with you? You're on your own? Friends, family, pet? This is your safe place. Imagine your safe place is a where have you been there? It welcomes you. It's pleased that you're there. Wants you to be safe. Notice how it feels to be wanted, to feel safe. What do you want to do there? Do you want to do anything? To go for a walk? You can swim. play, you can explore the place, you can just sit there, do anything you like. You're safe and welcomed. So just be there, feel what you can feel. Feel your body breathing. And then when you're ready, you can take a nice deep breath in. And you can breathe out and you can open your eyes. How was that for you? So that was a taster, really. It wasn't a guided meditation. It was there to try and allow you to explore and make your own place. You know, for some people it would be a beach. Some people might not like beaches. Some people it might be a forest, etc. So how was that? Anybody?
Mine changes every time.
Yeah.
It seems to change from place to place, and it never fails to amaze me. The one constant factor is the dog, and I can never think. I notice I can never think of her without this big smile coming onto my face. And I once did it on the train, actually, and my husband was sat opposite me, and he's like, "What on earth are you doing? You look so weird." And I'm kind of smiling to myself, just meditating. Well, it's a bit odd, so yeah, be careful where you do it around. But it's amazing the kind of power of the imagery personally about the dog. Thought I'd share that with you.
So there's Steph saying soothing and comforting. So this is certainly something we can do for ourselves. Certainly for people who are therapists or working with other people, something you can do with other people and help them to design and inhabit their own safe place. How are we doing? Should we move on? We're a bit short of time.
Okay.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Anything else?
So
yeah? I'll mute.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just another exercise that we've got, because a lot of CFT, of compassion approach, is about talk about the kind of method acting, and sometimes this need to almost take the role of something, even though you might not fully sort of believe it and feel yourself. You can imagine that you were sort of a deeply compassionate person, and sometimes getting into that role can then impact your body in a way that so it's almost fake it till you make it, really, and that can be a really helpful approach. But one of the things that can really help us is by using our memories. So having that reflection on memories and using that as an imagery can be helpful to build our sense of a compassionate self. So I just want you to now try and bring to mind, it might be quite tricky in this time, but it's something to work on, a memory where you felt really cared for. So perhaps somebody's been really kind to you, and that you found that soothing and pleasing. So it might be a loved one that helped you feel cared for, or it might be a total stranger, perhaps a random act of kindness. You know, today somebody changed my car battery and wouldn't take any money for it. So that was a really nice act of kindness that made me feel cared for. So if you can bring that to mind. And then just settle. I'll allow you to kind of do this in your own time, but settle into that soothing rhythm breathing, thinking about your body posture, your facial expressions. Just settling your attention on your breath and just slowing it down slightly. And those words on your out breath, mind slowing down. Body slowing down. So just spend some time now just paying attention to the specific kind of aspects of this memory. So what was the person like in their manner to you? Perhaps remembering what they looked like. And it might be very fleeting, the picture that you get of them. Perhaps you don't get one at all, but having a sense of what they looked like. And what was their facial expression like? And if they said words to you, how were they saying them? What was their voice tone like? And what kind of things did they say? And then really thinking about what their intention was. And the fact they really wished you well. And how did it feel for you being on the receiving end of this? What kind of body sensations did it bring about? And what was your body posture like? Your facial expressions? And don't worry if you don't remember. Just trying to get a sense of it. Just thinking of the qualities of this person that cared for you and how it felt to be on the receiving end of it. Just pay attention to any feelings of safety, contentment, or of connection with that person. And then when you're ready in your own time, just ending the exercise, but keeping that in mind, that sense of that person, hopefully bringing these feelings of safeness, contentment, connectedness into the rest of your day. So how did that feel for people? Was it easy or difficult? So I think some of the challenges can be for people that sometimes this can make people feel quite upset, perhaps if it's the memories of somebody that's no longer here, or perhaps there's been a loss of a relationship with, or problems in that relationship. So that can be a really kind of common problem. But sometimes it's that sadness is about our kind of threat system telling us how important that relationship was, and acknowledging that. Somebody's saying, Craig's saying, my challenge is remembering something distinct. Yeah, so it takes some time, doesn't it? It's hard to come up with it in a couple of minutes.
And
made you feel sad.
there, yeah, it can sometimes get us in touch with what we were feeling when we were comforted, so that can be difficult. So we always have to look after ourselves in these situations. Be careful.
Yeah.
Shall we move on then? Oh yes, it's going on. Okay, so as we said, we've done a lot of exercises today, and that was intentional, really. We wanted these five sessions to be theoretical, but we also wanted it to be experiential, so to give you a chance to practice the different exercises. We'll do some more next week, but we wanted to give you a taster, really, of what this is all about. So today we're going to finish on a kindness and compassion exercise, and we'll do the same as we usually do when we finish. We'll finish and open our eyes and wave goodbye, and then we'll meet up next week, if that's okay with everybody. So let's do that then. So assume the position, feel your feet on the ground, imagine a slight smile on your face, half smile, upright, strong, but relaxed. With your mind slowing down and your body slowing down. Feel the sensation of the air moving in and out of your body. Then I'm going to say something out loud and repeat it 3 times. And I invite you to do so in your head. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. And then I'd invite you to imagine somebody you care about, somebody you're close to, fond of, and bear them in mind. Say to yourself, may they be well. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. May they be well. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. May they be well. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. Feel yourself breathing. And then I'd invite you to imagine all the people in this webinar, all of us sat here learning about compassion. Bear all those people in mind, whether you know who they are or not, just the idea of all of us listening to this. And say to yourself, may we be well. May we be happy. May we be free from suffering. May we be well. May we be happy. May we be free from suffering. May we be well. May we be happy. May we be free from suffering. And then maybe we can try expanding this out. We could go to all the people in the north of England, or all the people in Britain, or all the people in Europe, or perhaps imagining the whole world, all the people in the whole world. Imagine all the people in the whole world and say to yourself, may we be well. May we be happy. May we be free of suffering. May we be well. May we be happy. May we be free of suffering. May we be well. May we be happy. May we be free of suffering. And then take a nice deep breath. Breathe out. Open your eyes and try and take some of today into the rest of your day. Thank you all very much, and see you next week, I hope. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.